Welcome to Enny's Diamond Stories, where real-life issues meet godly reflections, and deep questions find honest answers. Today's story is one that thousands of women and men silently wrestle with. A question that gnaws at the heart, haunts the midnight tears, and shakes the very foundation of a home. The story is titled, "Should I Stay or Walk Away? The Hardest Marriage Decision." Betty stood at the window of their quiet suburban home. The silence was thick, not just in the air but in her heart. For 10 years, she had given her best, loyalty, faith, support, and even silence when her soul wanted to scream. But now, the question would not leave her alone: should I keep enduring this emptiness, or is walking away the only way to survive? Years ago, Betty and Harold were the perfect couple on paper. Harold had charm and ambition. Betty had grace and dreams. Their wedding was a fairy tale, their honeymoon a burst of laughter and promises. Friends like Sharon envied their bond. But within 5 years, something shifted. Harold became colder, more ambitious than affectionate. He spent more nights in meetings and more weekends at business retreats. Betty's questions were met with irritation. Her efforts were brushed aside. A once loving gaze turned into nods without eye contact. The emotional neglect didn't start with shouting, it started with silence. At church, they sat side by side, but inside, they were worlds apart. Betty cooked meals Harold never complimented. She wore dresses he didn't notice. Her birthdays passed with a text, while his office events were celebrated in grandeur. Betty became invisible in her own home. Their children, Sharon and Liam, began to sense the cold. Sharon, now 14, stopped asking why Daddy never smiled. Liam, just 9, clung to Betty more often, asking if everything was okay. Betty always answered with a smile that hid her ache. One evening, her friend Jane visited. Jane had been through divorce and walked through the fires of depression. She listened quietly as Betty poured out her silent suffering. Betty didn't want to destroy her home, but she was slowly dying inside. She prayed, fasted, and pleaded. But Harold had changed. He no longer respected her. He never apologized. He never asked how she felt. She was a wife by title, not by experience. Jane looked at her with tears and whispered, "You are not alone. But you need to ask, is this marriage growing you or killing you?" One night, Harold came home late, again. Betty waited, not with anger, but with a trembling voice. She asked for a conversation, just 10 minutes of honesty. What followed was a storm she never saw coming. Harold exploded. He accused her of being ungrateful, of never understanding his pressure, of making him feel like a failure. He stormed into the bedroom, slammed the door, and slept like a king. Betty cried in the kitchen till dawn. Not because he shouted, but because he had become someone she could no longer recognize. One afternoon, as Betty was cleaning Liam's room, she found a drawing under his pillow. It was a sketch of their family, but Harold had no face. Just a dark cloud where his head should be. Liam had written, "I wish Daddy was home like other dads." Betty broke down. Sharon walked in later that day and asked quietly, "Mom, if Daddy doesn't love us, why do we pretend like he does?" It was a dagger through Betty's heart. She was not the only one hurting anymore. The children were bleeding too. Betty sat on her bed and stared at the divorce papers Jane had brought, just in case she ever needed them. But that wasn't her desire. She didn't want to walk away. She just wanted to be seen, heard, respected. She prayed. This time not for Harold to change, but for clarity. What was God's will? Should she fight for a man who no longer fought for them? Or was it time to step away, not in rebellion, but in survival? She visited a Christian counselor. She spoke to her pastor. She asked for accountability. The question kept burning: is enduring emotional death better than ending a broken cycle? 3 days later, Harold came home to an empty kitchen and a quiet house. On the dining table was a letter. Not a goodbye, but a mirror. Betty had gone to her parents for a while. The letter poured out everything she had bottled up: the neglect, the disrespect, the lonely nights, and the dying trust. For the first time in years, Harold read and wept. He didn't even realize he had become that man. Work had consumed him, pride had blinded him, and now, his family was slipping through his fingers. Harold drove to Betty's parents' house. Betty didn't look shocked to see him, just calm. He didn't make promises. He asked for one chance, not to fix things in a week, but to learn, to rebuild, and to become better. Betty didn't say yes immediately. She asked him to join counseling, to attend family sessions, and to regain trust brick by brick. He agreed. It wasn't magic. There were still hard days. But for the first time, Harold listened. He wrote notes. He prayed aloud for the family. He apologized to Sharon and Liam. He hugged them more. He asked Betty questions and waited for answers. Respect slowly returned. The love didn't rush back, but it grew in small moments, a shared cup of tea, a walk without words, a dinner where laughter returned. Now, let's talk about the external influence that could lead to either of these decisions, staying or walking away. External influences can significantly contribute to the emotional and spiritual tension in a marriage, leading some couples to question whether to stay or walk away. Here are some key external factors that can place pressure on a marriage and the practical examples. 1. Toxic advice from friends or family. Well-meaning loved ones can sometimes offer advice based on emotion, bias, or their own experiences. When couples allow outside opinions to guide their decisions more than prayer or wise counsel, it can fuel division. Betty confided in her cousin during a hard season in her marriage. Instead of encouraging her to seek godly counsel or talk with Harold, her cousin said, "If I were you, I would have left already. You deserve better." This kind of emotionally driven advice deepened Betty's frustration rather than leading to healing. 2. Unhealthy comparisons on social media. Constantly seeing filtered and seemingly perfect marriages online can create unrealistic expectations. This leads to dissatisfaction, jealousy, or resentment over what a spouse is not doing. Harold saw photos of Jerry and Faith celebrating their 10th anniversary in Paris. When Betty brought it up later with a sigh, she said, "Look at them. Why can't you be more romantic like Jerry?" That subtle comparison stirred feelings of inadequacy and ungratefulness between them. 3. Workplace relationships and emotional affairs. Spending more time with colleagues than one spouse can lead to emotional connections outside marriage, especially when appreciation or attention is lacking at home. A colleague at Harold's office always complimented him, laughed at his jokes, and checked in when he looked stressed. Over time, Harold began looking forward to work more than coming home. Though no physical affair occurred, emotional intimacy was already misplaced. 4. Financial pressure and job stress. Economic struggles or demanding careers can strain communication, reduce quality time, and heighten conflict. Many couples drift apart due to the stress of surviving rather than thriving. Betty lost her job, and Harold's work hours doubled to keep up with bills. They barely had time to talk. Every discussion turned into arguments about money, and neither could remember the last time they shared a peaceful meal or went for a walk together. 5. Negative cultural or societal beliefs. Some cultures or media promote selfishness, instant gratification, or, if you're not happy, walk away. This can erode commitment and the willingness to endure or heal. Jane, a friend of the couple, often quoted online influencers who said, "If you're not being treated like royalty, walk out." Self-love first. While self-worth matters, this cultural push for instant gratification discouraged forgiveness and humility. 6. Parental interference. Over-involved in-laws or controlling parents can make spouses feel disrespected, especially when boundaries are not clearly set or maintained. Harold's mother often visited unannounced and criticized Betty's cooking, parenting, and housekeeping. Instead of defending Betty or setting boundaries, Harold stayed silent to avoid conflict with his mother, causing Betty to feel isolated and unsupported. 7. Peer pressure and ungodly counsel. Being surrounded by divorced or unfaithful friends can normalize certain behaviors or cause one partner to feel stuck or foolish for choosing to stay and work things out. Harold's old school friends constantly joked about how marriage kills a man's freedom. One even advised him to have a backup plan in case things didn't work out. These repeated messages chipped away at his commitment mindset. 8. Child-related stress and external judgments. Raising children, especially those with special needs or difficult behaviors, can be exhausting. External pressure to parent a certain way can lead to blame and resentment between spouses. Their child, Liam, had learning difficulties. Betty spent most of her time in therapy appointments, while Harold felt ignored. Extended family often said, "Maybe if you were better parents," leading to silent blame and stress between them. 9. Spiritual disconnect. If one spouse begins drifting from faith, stops attending church, or no longer values spiritual things, it creates a significant gap that can invite conflict and confusion. In the early days, Harold and Betty prayed together every night. Over time, Harold stopped attending church, saying he was too tired. Betty felt alone in her spiritual walk. Their lack of shared faith practice created distance and misunderstandings. 10. Health issues and social stigma. Illness, infertility, or mental health struggles can cause societal judgment or shame, pushing one or both partners to withdraw emotionally or feel unworthy of love. After Betty was diagnosed with a chronic illness that affected her appearance and energy levels, she withdrew emotionally. Harold didn't know how to comfort her, and people began to whisper, "She's not the woman he married." The shame and pressure from others made healing harder. Practical and faith-based things couples can do to stay free from external influences and avoid reaching the painful point of deciding whether to stay or walk away in their marriage. 1. Build strong spiritual foundations together and grow spiritually and personally too. Couples should pray together regularly, study the Bible, and seek God's guidance as one. A shared spiritual life strengthens unity and discernment against negative influences. Grow spiritually and personally. Encourage each other's personal and spiritual growth. When individuals grow, the relationship grows. A stagnant person often leads to a stagnant partnership. 2. Respect each other's opinions and set healthy boundaries with family and friends. Respect isn't just about avoiding insults, it's about valuing each other's voice, choices, space, and boundaries. Disagreements should never become disrespect. Well-meaning relatives or friends can unknowingly interfere. Couples must agree on how much influence others can have, and respectfully protect their privacy and decisions. Surround yourself with godly mentors and couples. Choose to associate with spiritually mature and happily committed couples. Their counsel and example can encourage you to grow stronger together rather than fall apart. Agree on wise counsel sources, mentors, godly counselors, or mature couples who support growth and unity. When Betty hears toxic advice, she should run it through a truth filter and discuss it with Harold rather than act on impulse. Unity in decision-making should always come first. 3. Prioritize open and honest communication. When couples talk about everything, including their fears, temptations, and pressures, they reduce the power of outside voices. Secrets create gaps where external forces sneak in. Talk regularly about feelings, concerns, and dreams. Don't wait until small issues become walls of silence. Listen to understand, not to defend. Make time to talk without tension, even 15 minutes daily to connect emotionally without bringing up money. Create a joint plan for finances and support each other during career challenges. Betty could say, "We're in this together," and Harold could affirm her value beyond income. Express appreciation regularly. Saying thank you, noticing the little things, and complimenting each other keeps the relationship warm and affirming. Everyone needs to feel seen and valued. 4. Limit comparison through social media. Couples should avoid comparing their relationship to others online. What people display is often edited perfection. Contentment comes from nurturing what you have, not envying what seems ideal. Instead of comparing, couples should create their own joy offline, reminisce over their unique love story, set goals, and celebrate small wins. Betty could say, "Let's make our own memories this weekend," shifting from envy to creativity. Limit social media exposure during vulnerable seasons. 5. Be watchful against emotional affairs. An innocent friendship outside the marriage can become emotional infidelity. Couples must recognize and stop any connection that becomes too personal or secretive. Set firm emotional boundaries at work. Harold should share more with Betty than any colleague and guard against too much personal talk with the opposite sex. Regular check-ins and intimacy at home, like weekly date nights and open sharing, protect the emotional core of their marriage. 6. Protect the marriage from busyness and distraction. Work, ministry, parenting, or personal projects can become walls if couples don't intentionally spend time together. Prioritize quality time weekly, even in small ways. 7. Attend marriage enrichment programs or counseling. Seeking help isn't a sign of weakness. It's wisdom. Counseling, retreats, or workshops help couples gain tools to stand strong against internal and external conflicts. Build a support system, talk to therapists together, share responsibilities, and offer emotional validation. "We're both trying our best" should be a mantra. When external judgment comes, unite in saying, "This is our child, and we know what he needs." Prayer and grace fuel endurance. Seek counseling before crisis. Don't wait until things are broken. Seek Christian or professional counseling when patterns of disconnection, resentment, or emotional withdrawal begin to show. Address conflicts early and peacefully. Don't bury conflicts. Tackle them with maturity, forgiveness, and patience. Avoid the temptation to win arguments, aim to resolve them. 8. Don't let cultural expectations define your marriage. Cultural pressures, status, gender roles, and unrealistic standards can poison a marriage. Build your home on biblical values, not trends or societal approval. Set loving but firm boundaries. Harold should gently but clearly affirm Betty in front of his mother and explain their household choices are theirs to make. "We honor you, but our home will function by our joint decisions." Unity in setting boundaries protects peace. 9. Pray together consistently and be committed daily to love and forgive each other. External influence becomes powerful when internal unity is weak. Daily choosing love, forgiveness, and humility disarms whatever tries to divide you. A couple that prays together stays spiritually aligned. Praying together invites God into the center of the relationship and softens hearts. Couples should renew their minds with scripture and truth, replacing cultural noise with God's voice. They can read or listen to teachings on lasting love, sacrificial marriage, and covenant commitment together. Filter outside messages and regularly remind each other why they chose this journey. 10. Make time for each other intentionally. No matter how busy life gets, couples must create regular time to connect, whether it's a weekly date night, daily check-in, or short getaway. Emotional connection is maintained by presence, not proximity. Start with small spiritual habits. Betty could invite Harold to join her in a short devotional or worship playlist before bed. No pressure, just consistent love. Find common ground spiritually, and attend church together regularly to rebuild the foundation slowly but intentionally. 11. Keep physical and emotional intimacy alive. Intimacy goes beyond the physical. Couples must stay emotionally connected through affection, shared experiences, vulnerability, and intentional bonding. Prioritize emotional connection beyond physical circumstances. Harold can reaffirm Betty's worth and beauty regularly. Get counseling when needed. When others judge, respond with grace, not shame. "We are choosing love over fear" should be their posture. Vulnerability must be met with compassion. 12. Set shared goals and revisit them often. A shared vision gives a marriage purpose. Discuss your short and long-term goals as a couple, finances, parenting, service to God, travel, etc., and work toward them together. The question, "Should I stay or walk away?" goes far beyond convenience or emotion. It touches the very core of who we are, our destiny, dignity, and direction in life. For Betty and Harold, the journey to that answer was not easy. It came through tears, confusion, unseen battles, and finally, through pain, prayer, and patience. But one of the most dangerous parts of this question lies in the external influences that whisper into a troubled heart: friends who don't understand the full picture, family members driven by bias, society's ever-changing standards, or even social media's false perfection. These outside voices, if not filtered through wisdom and faith, can turn a moment of weakness into a lifetime of regret. If you're standing at the edge of this same question, may you find strength to silence the noise of the world, courage to face the truth within, and wisdom to choose what brings healing and not harm, hope and not heartbreak, peace and not pressure. Every marriage will face storms, but not every storm means it's time to jump the ship. Some storms come to strengthen the vessel, not to destroy it. If this story touched your heart, if it opened your eyes, or gave you a reason to hope again, then please don't forget to like, leave a comment, share your experience, share the video to your friends and families, and subscribe to Enny's Diamond Stories. We share real-life, faith-filled, and purpose-driven stories that heal hearts, strengthen families, and remind you that your story isn't over, not even close. Join our growing community and be part of stories that inspire change, rebuild faith, and restore love. Until next time, keep believing, keep praying, and always remember: Even broken pieces can be used by God to build something beautiful. Have an amazing day. Bye.